Tonight, more Mandalorian news, New Mutants has another release date, and back the comeback on Comic Book Canon! Welcome to Comic Book Canon, your weekly fix on comic book news and pop culture. I am joined by my co-host and friend, Chris from Journals Comics. Chris, how are you doing?
What's going on, Jeff? How's everyone doing tonight?
We are good. Jeff? It's a Friday night. I'm on the East Coast. It's 80 degrees. It was snowing last Saturday, so you tell me. It's, we're all over the place these days.
Indeed, indeed.
All right, let's get into it here. So, more Mandalorian goodness here, right? Last week we heard that we're going to see Boba Fett. Super exciting, right? This week we heard that Bo-Katan Kryze, who you may know from the Clone Wars series, she will be making her live-action appearance as well. And even better, the person who lent her voice to that role in the Clone Wars, Katie Sackhoff, will reprise that role. I am super excited about this because all of these interpretations of the Star Wars stories are kind of starting to intertwine, and that gets me extremely excited. How are you feeling about this, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have so many eras of within the Star Wars universe that is kind of really being able to be more cohesive and brought together in different formulas in different ways. And to see these voice characters come back to live action is great. I think Katie Sackhoff is great for the role. We just saw her in The Flash, I believe, over the last 2 episodes playing Aminette Black. I think she did an awesome job in that role. So I can definitely see the voice with the image pair really well in live action.
Yeah, and another thing that I find interesting as well, Bo-Katan Kryze, her sister was Satine Kryze. Both of them are Mandalorians. Satine Kryze was the Prime Minister of Mandalorian. She had a special relationship with Obi-Wan, and spoilers, sorry for those who have not seen it, but brutally murdered by Darth Maul. And so, with that being said, Obi-Wan is connected to Satine, who's the sister of Bo-Katan. Could we possibly see Bo-Katan in the Obi-Wan series as well? What do you think about that?
Yeah, again, cohesiveness. I'm all about cohesiveness, and I'm all about us not really knowing, because that's the beauty of all of these things, because then we spend months on social media creating our own theories. The only good thing about it, though, is that we don't, or the only negative thing that can come about it is that we don't set too much, extreme expectations. But I think it's absolutely fun to see all these things, like we said, tie in and see what can come from it.
No, I agree. And speaking of tie-ins, we have, it's not quite a tie-in because it's actually the knot. It's tying the knot and kind of completing a series. We have news on the New Mutants. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, this last chapter in Fox X-Men is a sad one at this point, but hopefully it's going to have a happy ending. The New Mutants has been pushed back again. This is going back 2 years now. Initially, we were supposed to see this movie in April of 2018, but Fox wanted to, showcase Deadpool 2, so they pushed it back to February 2019. But oh wait, Dark Phoenix, so they pushed it back again until August of last year. But then Disney acquires Fox, and then of course, with the most recent April release date, the COVID crisis happened. There's nothing anyone could do about that. That's obviously unfortunate. So, but now Disney's sticking it out and pushing this back until August of this year. And I think that says something, because we could be sitting here as fans demanding this be something that is brought over to on demand. Why not pay $20, $25 out of pocket to watch? So they're looking to stick with that cinematic release.
No, that's a good point. And what even further on that point is that I really feel like Disney believes in this film. Otherwise, they would have just sent that out and be done with it. I mean, having them just wait it out and make sure that this gets the proper theatrical release that was intended for it, it really shows me that Disney and the people behind the film believe in it, and it could be a nice way to just cap off and end the Fox era of mutants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We better be coming out of that theater, just like jumping up for joy, because like you said, they believe in it. So it makes us have a, a lot of faith as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, turning the corner from Marvel to DC, most of you know that DC has DC Universe, where they showcase their comic books and original series like Titans, Doom Patrol, and Swamp Thing. And it was just released. News was just released that Swamp Thing, even though it was canceled the day after the first episode, the CW is now the CW has now acquired that first season, that first 10 episode run. So they're going to air that 10 episode run on the CW network, possibly giving this series more life. Now, I have to admit, personally, I have not seen any of the series on DC Universe. I would like to. It's just paying for another subscription that really kind of prohibits me from doing that. I don't have enough time as it is to watch the subscriptions that I do have and the content that I do have. But I'm all about pushing this genre out there and having it be successful, because that means there's more possibilities for more characters and more ventures in terms of series and franchises and things like that. So I'm excited. How are you feeling?
Yeah, definitely. I've been a fan of the CW Arrowverse and whatnot, and we've seen CW take other shows such as Supergirl from CBS, but this is obviously different because they're not taking it to continue it, at least at this point. They're re-airing that initial season, but something tells me that CW wouldn't be doing this without at least having a thought of utilizing this as some sort of test run, test the waters, see if viewers will demand more, so then CW can continue to push for a second season or third season, and hopefully maybe even make it a part of their Arrowverse.
No, I completely agree, and I would like to see that too. I've been a little disappointed with the Arrowverse as of late, but
yeah,
Swamp Thing's it's a more mature title. It's a more mature approach, so it's got a lot of horror elements to it. So I would like to see it succeed, and hopefully it gets greenlit for a season 2. Moving on, what do we got next, Chris?
All right, Spider fans. I know we got 2 big Spider fans in the room. So what else but some awesome Spider news now. We all could take this with a grain of salt. There's been a lot of speculation around this, but this comes from the writer, one of the writers and producers of the Into the Spider-Verse. But there is speculation, a possibility for a live-action Spider-Verse crossover with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland. Now, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Don't get too excited. This all came from a conversation from Chris Miller, one of the producers on the Into the Spider-Verse, proposing to Sony that they get all 3 actors to lend their voice to an end credit scene at the end of Into the Spider-Verse. Sony's reply was, "We're not against it, but it's too soon." So just from that little, kind of hint of sprinkling there, this is really getting blown out of proportion to say, well, hey, it is a possibility, but you can't deny that it is a possibility. But how much feet on the ground can we actually, expect from this?
I'm gonna tread lightly here. Like, Spider-Man is by far my favorite character in all of literature. I absolutely love Spider-Man, and for Sony to consider something like this, it would take a lot for me to be excited. I'm really enjoying how they've, since Spider-Man 2, the Raimi Spider-Man 2, they've finally gotten Spider-Man right in the MCU. I'm excited for every story that they're about to tell. Throwing these 2 other actors into the same role, into a Spider-Verse type of thing, and kind of doing its own thing really concerns me. And I'll leave it there. That's not something I'd be wishing for. We would love to hear from you guys, the viewers. Let us know in the comment section. We're going to be answering questions at the end of the show. Thank you for joining us. But going back to the Spider-Verse live action, let's just kind of keep rolling with the MCU. How about it? But speaking of universes, as most of you know, Valiant released Bloodshot to some, in an unfortunate circumstance because of it was a week before the COVID really hit everybody, and they pulled it from theaters because theaters shut down, and they had to go to a video on demand. It didn't do as well as Valiant probably hoped for. Me, as a longtime Valiant fan, I really, really, really wanted to see this do well because I really want to see a Valiant universe. Recently, Dan Mintz, who's with DMG Entertainment, who owns Valiant, said that there is plans for a Valiant universe. I don't quite see how that's possible, considering they sold Harbinger, which is another title, which is kind of like a version of the X-Men in the Valiant universe. They sold the rights to Sony sold the rights to Harbinger to Paramount. And the idea originally before this happened was that Paramount or that Harbinger and Bloodshot would team up into a Harbinger Wars movie based on the comic book. That I don't see happening anytime soon, considering they're owned by the rights are owned by two studios, and that's unfortunate. Dan Mintz goes further and says that he sees this Valiant universe more as like something from the mind of Scorsese, where there's not black and white. You know, it's not good guy, bad guy. Everybody's in a gray area. Yeah, those are the stories that a majority of Hollywood tells. Like it's not black and white and right in your face. So for me as a Valiant fan, I don't see it happening. I wish it happens. I want to see every comic book property succeed on the big screen or on the small screen and all our other mediums, other outside of comic books. But I don't see it. I'm not sure. You know, how do you feel about that, Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with you. I am a supporter of anything comic book when it comes to live action or animated for that. I don't want any to fail. You know, it's just a fact of the matter that we've seen huge successes and some huge failures from some of these companies taking their characters and putting them on the big screen. Now with Valiant, I think that ultimately the Scorsese remark, he might just be kind of speaking to an audience that wants to see something fresh, and he just decided to name drop Scorsese because Scorsese's been such a opponent of the Marvel brand cinema. So, but we'll see. I mean, look, the thing that they have going for them right now is they have two models that came before. They have a very successful model with the MCU, and they have a model that hasn't been as successful as it should have with the DCEU. And they can really, I think they really can take their time here and build upon it. And if they take years, I mean, it took Avengers 4 years, MCU to get to the Avengers, 4 years, right? So they can take even longer than that to build on this. And maybe by that time, if there is success in some solo films, maybe Sony can then talk with the other studios and try to work something out with bringing these characters under one umbrella. But like you said, I mean, it's the politics within that, it's so complicated. I don't think they'll have the power that Disney has had into, working with other studios. So, I mean, we'll see. This could be something that's 5-10 years in the making, though, that could change down the road.
Yeah, I agree. They've kind of dug themselves a hole, and not of all of it. It wasn't all their fault, considering what's going on with COVID, theater shutting down, and things like that. It wasn't that great of a movie. I enjoyed it for what it was, but they got a long comeback, I think, to get to a level playing field with Marvel and DC. Speaking of comeback, our next story kind of relates to that, and take it away, Chris.
All right, yeah. So, sombering news. I was reading this week that a couple local comic book shops have shut down, probably for good. There was one in San Diego, another one in Florida. So this crisis is really hitting comic book owners or comic book store owners really hard. But good news on the horizon. May 20th, Diamond will be back distributing comic books. And that's not all. There is a hashtag movement to go along with it. So Steve Jeppy, Diamond's CEO, has touched on the hashtag back the comeback movement that he is pumping out there. Now, at surface value, the hashtag back the comeback is something that seems extremely positive and getting the word out. So, folks like you and I, to industry heads and writers and artists, everyone can, take pictures or post on Instagram and Twitter, showing that they're supporting their local comic book stores, right? And add this hashtag back the comeback. It's a great way to get the community up and running to support their local LCSs. But there's multiple layers to this because Jeppy has seemed to push this as a brand, not just a movement, but as a brand. And he's also talking about branding all the new comic books released during this time as pandemic issues. And he's planning on having a checklist for every book that has the logo branded on the cover. So as much as I think this is ultimately something that's very positive that can bring much needed revenue back to local comic book shops, mom and pop shops, it seems a bit flat in terms of lacking a bit of empathy towards the bigger crisis that we're all living through right now.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, the comic book stores need a shot in the arm. This is overall, you have to see it as a good thing. I'm concerned about the intention behind this, because if you guys look at this logo here that they came up with back to Comeback, in the bottom corner you'll see a TM, which stands for a trademark. Why would you trademark a hashtag if you don't have anything to gain from that? That is my concern. Diamond being the kind of monopoly that they are, it does leave a bad taste in my mouth. Only time will tell what their intentions are. I don't agree with labeling these comic books or sending notes or having it, all glitz and glammed out as back the Comeback. But comic book fans are yearning for their books, and they're excited to get back into the shops and buy more. And then obviously local comic shops are excited to have the people back and start building back where it was from before. And I hope this will work, and I hope the intentions are there, and that this will be the start of a movement that does help in the end. So from that's all for news that we have this week. We're going to be moving on to something that Chris and I enjoy quite a bit. We enjoy specking on our favorite comic books out there that could be related to films or may spike in the market. It's fun. Chris is a business major. He enjoys that type of stuff. I enjoy just checking out the market and wondering why these books go up and down as they do. Now, we follow a site, or we check out a site every once in a while called Cover Price. They release their top 10 issues of the week, the hottest issues of the week, every Tuesday, I believe. And that was released this previous week, and we have 10 issues here, which we'll just go through them really quickly, which was number 10 was Darth Vader, number 3, 9, Nova 1, 8, Annihilation Conquest Wraith, number 1, Lazarus, number 1, was number 7, 6 is New Gods, number 9, Star Wars, number 42, hit number 5, number 4 is Wretches, number 1, number 3 is Annihilation Conquest Wraith, number 2, number 2 is The Mighty Avengers 13, and number 1 is Youngblood, number 2. Now, those are all great books. We could talk a lot about them, but Chris and I have interest in a few of those books. And we can start here with, it's a pretty popular book. A lot of fans love this character. Chris, take it away. Which book are we talking about on this list?
It's this nice, fancy Bronze Age book right here.
Oh, look at you.
Nova number 1. I just did a video before it was even released on Cover Price. So for your specking news, hit me up. No, I'm not all knowing, believe me. But I just did a video talking about what are a couple of books to really invest in right now while they're affordable. And this was the first one I called Man Called Nova, number 1. This is a character that we have seen on the horizon for years now, or we have speculated to be on the horizon for years now, showing up in the MCU. With the Nova Corps in the first Guardians showing up, and then lots of speculation on him showing up in a future Guardians film. Maybe he'll show up in Guardians 3. His possibility of showing up in Endgame that eventually did not happen, yet the Russo brothers still were trolling us about. I just think it shows to the fact that Kevin Feige and everyone with Marvel Studios is on board, and there are plans in the work to bring him into the cinematic universe. It's just not concrete yet, but when we do, I think it's going to be amazing. And this is a book right now that, it has spiked over the last couple of years, but it's still a book that even in a decent high grade, you could probably get a decent 7.0 for around $100 right now. So I definitely think that now is a good time to buy before the movie hype is really crazy and we actually have a confirmed introduction of this character into the MCU.
You see this?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I got my copy here too. Yeah, I'm excited too, man, for this character. He's definitely like one that I think once he's out there, it'll be like Guardians of the Galaxy and be household names. Like nobody knew who Groot or Rocket Raccoon were before Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm excited for him to get his due because he is a great character. But then you have the other iterations of Nova as well. So moving on, we had another spike, another interesting development in terms of another book. We'll say that. New Gods number 9. As most of you know, New Gods is being adapted. Obviously, this is a DC book, and Ava DuVernay, she directed Selma, fantastic director. She's going to be directing New Gods, and she's a huge Jack Kirby fan. This is based all on Jack Kirby's art, or all of his work. She's been working on this project for about 2 years now, and people are starving for news because you don't hear much about this. You hear about the Aquaman 2, or will we get a Zack Snyder cut, or Wonder Woman 1984? Those kinds of people are yearning for that. Not many people are asking questions about this comic book or this IP. A few weeks ago, actually last week, somebody did tweet asking Ava, what's going on with New Warriors? Can you give us some news? Because you asked so nicely, she says, working on a 4th draft of a scene featuring All Widow. Now, this is just a scene. But because she mentioned All Widow, that's the reason that New Gods number 9 is kind of on this list. And everybody has been interested in getting the first appearance of New Gods number 9. That being said, that's why we see that as number 9 on the list. Moving on, though, there are other books to discuss. What do we got, Chris?
Well, big. I mean, we talked about it last week on our show too, with Boba Fett showing up in The Mandalorian season 2. So, what other than the first appearance of Boba Fett in the comic books with Star Wars number 42? Obviously, this has always been a hot book. It is one that you're not going to find in back issue bins any longer, or hasn't been for a while. But now it's picking up steam again. With the announcement of a new fresh live action version in The Mandalorian season 2 with Morrison from the prequels returning to his role. So this is something where you get a book that's already, a very sought after key book in an announcement like this. I don't see this necessarily being a crazy speculation, but I understand the hype. It's crazy, like you said, with just one tweet with the New Gods, and everyone's on it. One announcement with the character showing up for just one episode in a Mandalorian. People feed off of the littlest of information. So will this cool down a little bit? Possibly, but as I always say, when you look at any kind of market, even if it's a stock market, and you get books that are already sought after like this, we may see a little bit of bubble. And once Mandalorian season 2 comes out, that bubble can go up a little more, and it can come down and pop a little bit. But this is a book that's never going to go below a threshold. And I think over time, this character is just going to become more iconic. So we'll see. And again, I don't think the Mandalorian season 2 is the last that we're going to see Boba Fett. So we have more of that looking forward to as well.
Interesting take right there. Yeah, he's a fan favorite character that was in a movie and a half,
Right.
Just iconic. And for people to be, we heard those boots happen. I think it was episode 5 of The Mandalorian walking toward, can't remember her character, but you hear the spurs, right? And it just harkens you back to Empire Strikes Back when you hear the spurs. So it's not a surprise it's coming. Excited it is, and not exactly that much of a surprise that people are going bat as crazy for this Star Wars number 42. Moving on, though, to number 1 on the list, where Chris and I found this both interesting. Rob Liefeld, he's created a wide range of characters throughout his career. Youngblood was part of the Image launch back in the early 90s. And a certain issue number 2 is now being sought after. That's the big issue. That is number 1 on the cover price list. Issue number 2. So the reason for that, though, let's bring this up, shall we? The reason for issue number 2 being sought after, there's a character that first debuted in this issue called Prophet. And, you know, I feel like back in the early 90s, you had millions of issues. Oh, I see it. Just bring it out, Chris. Everybody look at Chris's Youngblood number 2. Bring it up. There we go.
Not one, but 2. That's the flip side. But not only 2, pink variant signed by the man himself, Rob Liefeld.
Chris has it. That's great. I have another. I don't know. It's stacked away somewhere. But congratulations, you have 3 of the 3 million books that were probably printed back then.
Right.
I mean, but it's the hot book right now, and the reason being is the news was just released that they've tapped Mark Guggenheim to script Prophet, the feature film adaptation of this character. So Mark Guggenheim he's a pretty big wig. You know, he's the one that started the whole Arrowverse, and that leads a lot of credence to this character, to this potential franchise. I don't know how far this is going to go. Will this introduce Youngblood or any of the other Rob Liefeld's characters? Who knows? But it's something. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. And the fact that this spiked up to number 1 on the list says something, because these issues, they were easy to find before it hit number 1. We'll see what happens in the weeks coming up. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, hey, don't knock early 90s Image. I mean, you know, hey, we probably all been there. You know, we rummage 50-cent bins, and there it all is. You know, like you said, millions of copies of each issue, mass produced. But hey, there is something in these characters and in these books, and I absolutely would love to see an Image universe happen in some form or fashion. I think Rob Liefeld gets a lot of crap, and some of it well deserved, you know, and some of his art is questionable, but you can't deny the characters that he's developed. I mean, how many Deadpool fans are out there? How successful has Deadpool been? Even Cable has been a fan favorite, and obviously we relate them to Marvel, you know, probably the biggest company out there when it comes to comic books. But I definitely think there's something in these characters, and I think there's something to be said to them being brought to the big screen. And I can't wait to see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you and I are both on the same page. We want to see these properties succeed. We don't want comic movies failing, no matter where they're from. DC, Marvel, Image, no matter what. We want to see these succeed. It's only good for the whole industry. It's only good to see these characters and these stories advance even further. And I'm excited. I'm on board. Make it happen, Guggenheim. Make it good. We'll be there. I am super excited. With that being said, Chris and I have been super excited about this thing we've been running all week, where we're asking our audience to send in their first issue they ever got. We use the hashtag MyFirstComicCBC. Please, audience, keep continuing. Send them in. We love seeing this thing. We love seeing what started your passion and your love for comics. We had a few entries here that we'd like to share right now before we get to our entries. So first on the list, we have Weapon X Squall with Amazing Spider-Man 351. This is an issue, I do believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, it started Mark Bagley, the artist, who's well known for Spider-Man and also probably helping create Carnage. It started on his long run, and he's had an amazing career within Marvel Comics. I'm not familiar I'm not sure if he's done any DC work, but that's a great book to have right there, especially the first. Like, I know he did a few issues before, but it's the first run for a long run.
Right. Yeah. When Eric Larson left, to go join Todd and Rob with over at Image. Yeah, Begley came on, and I mean, he ran with it. And then, of course, he was the inspiration behind the Ultimate Spider-Man. That I loved the Ultimate Spider-Man run, and he penned that whole series. And I love his work. My son loves his work, and yeah, I mean, he helped be the brain behind Carnage. So
Yeah,
much respect due there for
for
sure.
me, he's up there because like he was in our like the years that we really it was really like impressionable in terms of like obviously for me I feel like McFarlane was one of the most impressionable artists of when I first started collecting. I feel like Bagley though has had that kind of he's been there for so long. He was drawing Spider-Man for so long, and I feel like he deserves. He may not be up there as high as McFarlane. McFarlane has a huge fan base, but he's definitely one of those. He should be known as one of the great Spider-Man artists because he had such a fantastic run. All right, next up we have Genome Presents with his West Coast Avengers number 16, A Tale of Two Kitties. What's that? Hellcat and Tigra. Man, dude, I loved me some West Coast Avengers. I absolutely loved West Coast Avengers. I had that issue as well. It's just it left an impression on me in terms of like first starting my comic book collecting as well, and to see somebody else, a fellow collector, that his first issue was a West Coast Avengers a book. It makes me feel good. That's kind of a little teaser of what's to come in terms of what I'm going to be talking about. And finally, we have this one's fantastic. This is sent in by a 64-page special. Superman versus Muhammad Ali. This issue is an absolute classic. I mean, I'm not old enough, and I believe Chris, you as well. It wasn't like we weren't searching for these issues, but I mean, look at this issue. I'm not sure if you can see it on the cover here, but you see. I mean, there's Jimmy Carter right there, former President Jimmy Carter. You have a lot of other celebrities on the back as well. Neil Adams cover. I think Neil Adams drew the interiors as well. Just a fantastic issue, and it's good stuff. 64-page specials, good stuff on that. And Chris, I could just see it in your eyes. You got something to show us, don't you?
Well, I mean, it's special to me, But are you ready for it? You ready to see what I got?
Yeah, I'm ready. I just see it in your eyes. I know you got something. The guy who has 16,000 comic books in his collection. Go for it.
Well, here, it's a story of, and I was asked this on a live stream that I did on my channel about a week ago. If you could just grab one comic, knowing that the rest of your comics had to get trashed or whatnot, if you had to hold on to one comic, what would it be? And I picked this book, and not because it has value, but monetary value, but because it has value to me. So I remember being a kid. I was probably 4 years old in the 80s, and I was in an Alpha Beta supermarket. I don't know how many of you remember Alpha Betas, but I would go to that store with my mom. I was sitting in the cart, with your legs dangling in the little seat. And what I remember is I do believe we were going up to the register, but I know it was a spinner rack. And I saw this book, and I grabbed it, and I don't remember the details after that, but I just remember my mom bought it for me, and I brought it home. And and this is the original copy. It's all beat up. It is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures. Basically, this is a soft cover with your standard newspaper print pages, but what it is a flat spine Random House collection of the Archie miniseries, 1 through 3. Now, I don't know if you guys can see, but it is beat up. You can probably see all those, what I call finger crinkles. It's beat up. It's ripped up. I did there's a word search in here that I did. And the fun thing about this book is that when I open it up, and this may be weird, but old books have a smell. Every time I take it out of the bag, I can smell the year or the time I was there at 4 or 5 years old reading this book, and it just brings you back. And as an artist, this book is one book that I started copying and drawing, and one of the first things that I ever drew was Ninja Turtles. And I would flip to a page here, and I would find a picture of the Ninja Turtles, and I would have my paper next to me, and I would copy it and draw it. So this book just means so much. And like I said, every time I read it up, the nostalgia, or I open it up, the nostalgia, reading the story again, it just brings me back to being a kid. And And yeah, it's not about monetary value. If I had to lose all other 16,100 and something books in my collection, I would hold on to this one. And that is without question.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And I need to apologize because I saw you digging around and I thought you were digging for a Muhammad Ali versus Superman. I'm like, no, he isn't. No, he is not. Because we were supposed to do Chris's last because I already kind of spoiled mine on Instagram. But that's amazing, Chris. That is absolutely amazing. It kind of sets you not only on your comic book journey, but also as an artist too. So that's really, really special to hear. Yes. Okay, so for me, I have a similar type of a story. Growing up, I just attached myself to Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. It was the cartoons. I think it was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends that I really attached myself to. And he just became the guy I wanted to watch or get the toys and just be around all the time. So I don't know when I got this. I probably was maybe 6 years old, but my parents got me my first comic book, which was this Amazing Spider-Man. It's an the detergent special giveaway. I've kept it with me ever since, and it's really old. But this is what kind of set me on my journey as well. And I'm really, really like, it just brings back memories going through it. Just as Chris said, like just looking at these impressionable. It's a reprint, I think, of a Ditko story, Stan Lee and Ditko story. But you know, going through this book and opening it up and smelling the pages, it just brings you back to that moment you first saw it. And it's something that like I will cherish forever. I will not get rid of it. And it's a sentimental value to me is, you know, nowhere near any sort of monetary. So, but that being said, I have a two-part story here because I didn't start collecting because of that book. I started collecting because I got these two books from a friend in 7th grade. By the name of Keir Alexander. It's Mr. Johnson's science class. Mr. Johnson was he was a Marine, just a hard-nosed guy. He would, if he catch you chit-chat with your buddy, he reprimand you, and his phrase was, "I will bust your little butts." And we were just like, oh my God, this guy's going to kick our ass. But anyways, Keir Alexander and I sat next to each other, and one day he just turned around and he's like, hey, take these comic books. And I was like, absolutely. First one is West Coast Avengers #1. And that kind of goes with Genome Presents and his West Coast Avengers 16. And then I also got from Keir X Factor #1, which this set me on my journey. I started collecting on the regular every week. I had to pick up my new comic books. I had to go to the local bookstore that had the comic book rack spinner and buy my books. That opened the door to everything for me. Obviously, I started collecting Spider-Man immediately, but these two books just had to start collecting on a monthly basis that became weekly basis. And, you know, it's something that I love, and Chris and I love talking about it. So that is my first comic CBC. Maybe we'll do it again if you guys all enjoyed that. I did. Did you, Chris?
Absolutely.
Great.
I told the story multiple times. I'll tell it multiple times more.
I mean, it's something. It left an impression. Like, it's not going to go away from either of us. So, anyways, we want to hear your stories. So please tag us. My First Comic CBC. Tag us at Comic Book Canon on all social media. We'd love to hear your stories, and you know, maybe we'll share it in a future episode. But right now we are at our Q&A, and it looks like we have some comments here. What do we got? Now that New Mutants, this is from Isaac Maynard. So now that New Mutants movie coming out, do you think any of the New Mutant comic books or Spectrum value will that really revitalize the market? What do you think, Chris? What do you think?
You know, I'm going to say ultimately no. I just don't think that you know, we've sat with the Fox brand of X-Men characters for 2 decades plus now, basically, and I think that that bubble has bursted. I think with this specific film, the fact that we've been waiting 2 years, I just don't see it really doing anything crazy. Now, you never know, because like Jeff and I were saying, I mean, there's a reason that Disney is trying to keep this to a cinematic release. So, hey, I mean, if we walk out of this movie and something is crazy and we're like, wow, blown away, which I don't know if it's going to be to that level. You never know. But here's the twist that might change things around. I'm thinking, because and I know that Fox re-edited and did some different cuts before Disney acquired them to this film. But I'm gonna speculate and say that I think that Disney, if not anything to the actual movie itself, but added an end credit scene that somehow will tie the New Mutants to the MCU or to bringing in the X-Men to the MCU. If we see something like that, and that's the reason for keeping this in the theaters as a theatrical release, then I think it could have a really domino effect to help push something up in the comic books, whether that's just New Mutants #1 or if it's a specific character. I don't know, but I will end on this note that, ever since the announcement of this movie, New Mutants #1 has gradually increased. Now, is it going to be something that's going to break your pocket anytime soon? I don't see that happening with any specific book in this run, besides the one obvious New Mutants 98.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy talk, but I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility in terms of like some sort of end credit scene that would tie. I don't know, but yeah, I don't see, other than like obviously the most famous copy or the most popular copy of New Mutants is New Mutants 98, where you have the first appearance of Deadpool. So that'll probably continue to go up, even though there are quite a few printed. But I agree with you. I don't see it really affecting the market that much. All right, so DJS2 has an interesting observation. What do you think about this? Double camo! You got it, DJS2. Absolutely. This was not planned, but Chris and I are on the same wavelength. That's why this happened. Am I right, Chris?
Absolutely, man. We are. Well, I was gonna make a play on words and say we're soldiers right now in the comic book community, but being that I thought about that, I had to bite my tongue, and I want to give a shout out to all the real soldiers right now on the front lines. Now, again, no disrespect to soldiers in uniform, but we really got to understand that folks out there right now on the front line are true soldiers as well. Whether they're, bagging your groceries or, working at the gas stations to make sure you still have gas in your car, to obviously the nurses and the doctors, man. So maybe this is just a representation of all those out there on the battlefields, whether it's, in the trenches or on the battlefields here at home, battling this crisis. So, yeah.
Yeah, well said, man. Like, I see a lot of people, these restrictions are starting to ease a little bit, and people's tempers are not being in check. These people are risking their lives to stand in line, or to stand there and help you, to help you get what you want. Come on, you gotta, respect them. Props to everybody who's doing that, from nurses, doctors, grocery, people working in groceries, pharmacies. They deserve the most praise that we could heap upon them. And once we get out of this, I really hope we'll all be able to celebrate. I don't know, celebrate's a strong word. I really hope that we'll all be able to come together closer now, because we really need that.
Absolutely.
So less heavy right now. B-level Star Wars. Love this. It's awesome. This is the first time in new canon that they've confirmed Boba Fett is alive post-Sarlacc pit. Absolutely. Like, did you ever think you'd see this day? I certainly did not. Absolutely did not. I am super pumped. My enthusiasm showed last week. It's showing this week. Again, intertwining these characters, it's just, and bringing back old favorites, it's so exciting. Like, people are like, Star Wars is dead. No way. Like, the Skywalker saga has ended, but there's so many more stories to be told here, and so much love for this universe. I personally can't wait.
I agree, and like you said, yes, I think Star Wars is far from being dead. I think the issue surrounding Star Wars goes back to a lot of the fans never being able to be happy, which pushed George Lucas to sell to Disney. And I agree, though, that Disney hasn't done the best handling of it. But, I think Disney has learned. I think that's one key takeaway. I think Disney has learned from the mistakes that they made. I hope the fans have too. I have a feeling that Favreau is going to be a big and pivotal player in his role with Star Wars moving forward. There's a lot of great things to look forward to. And I really hope that the fans, approach this with an open mind, because we as fans have to always understand that the art isn't going to always portray what we expect from it. But with that said, we still wanted to hold a certain essence to where it can continue to cater to us as fans and to our needs, for us to continue to be willing to spend our money and spend our time being invested into this universe that is Star Wars. But I'm very I think it's going to be positive moving forward. Absolutely.
No, definitely. And a guy like Favreau, John Favreau, like he's proved himself. Like ever since you saw Elf, we're like, whoa, this guy, or actually Swingers, like this guy has got some. But translating that to Iron Man, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And just being able to build those types of things, he's so creative, and I'm so excited for the Star Wars future. All right, Johnny Zuko, what do you got? Do you think we will ever see an R-rated Deadpool under the current Marvel Studios brand, or will Deadpool be left to operate in his own universe and they will create their own brand like a Marvel Knights? Very good question. I personally think it's been said. I think Bob Iger said Deadpool will continue. It will be R-rated, which will be the first R-rated movie under the Disney umbrella. I do believe that's been confirmed. I'm pretty sure that they've had talks with why is his name escaping? Sorry about that. Why is his name escaping me? The star of Deadpool.
Oh, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. There we go. It's been a long week, everybody. Cut me some slack. No, there's been talks with Ryan Reynolds and Marvel. He will be in the Marvel universe, and I think we should all be excited about this. I think it will be the same tone, the same kind of pretty much brash humor that we come to expect from the previous two.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and I think we are going to ease into this, and we'll see what Disney's doing. I mean, we got Blade on the horizon. We have Morbius with Sony, which I think will allow, Disney to dive more into the horror aspect. So, with Marvel do whatever it's going to do with its Blade franchise. We have Morbius with Sony. We can see a lot more characters pop up that'll intertwine with the other characters in the MCU. And I think then we could possibly see them toned down. But when they're in their standalone films, I think Sony is going to kind of let the restraints go and be okay with having these standalone films be R-rated. And for Deadpool, I think it is very viable to allow this character to hop over and say, in whatever, maybe it's an Avengers movie, maybe it's a Spider-Man movie, and we see him interact in a PG-13 way with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but when he goes back into his own movie, but again, it's something that we have to kind of see to believe it, to see how it'll all work out. And again, I am faithful that Disney and Kevin Feige specifically is going to understand the fan bases and what we want out of these different franchises and characters. And I think it's in good hands, and I think we're gonna have the best of both worlds here.
I mean, I trust in Feige. Like, he is a fan. And I think that we're all in good hands with Feige. So just trust in Feige, everybody. I definitely think that there's so much more to be excited about at the MCU, DCEU, so much more to be excited about in comics in general. But for now, I think we're going to end this show. I want to thank all the viewers for joining us. We do this because we enjoy it and we love it. We hope that shows, and we hope this brings some sort of enjoyment and love to you as well, considering the times that we're all going through together. Chris, you have any parting words?
Yeah, again, just like you said, I appreciate being here. I appreciate all the viewers. I appreciate the interaction, and we're just going to keep building on this. This is our second show, first official show. And I just think there's a lot of great things to look forward to. And right now, this is just something that I'm super proud to be a part of. And I hope you guys watching keep coming back, and keep feeding us more quality as well, because we love interactive. Sorry, not quality, but content that we can build from you guys, that we can bring to our show. So we want to make this as fun interactive for you guys as well. So, you know, and look for us again next Friday.
Absolutely. Well said. I keep doing that. It has been a long week, everybody. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Please follow us on all socials, Comic Book Canon. Please follow Chris on at Journos Comics. Let me bring that up for you right now. We'll be back next Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Everybody have a safe and wonderful week. We'll speak to you. Goodbye.